Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Arsenal Daily Transfer Show, in which we look at all the latest Arsenal transfer news, get you guys up to date into what is going on in the world of Arsenal's ins and outs, and get your thoughts, of course, in the chat box as well, and try to make some sense of the chaos that goes on every single Arsenal summer. You can join us every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time, which is when we're running these shows live. So make sure you don't miss out, and make sure you subscribe to get all of the content and like the videos to show your support as well. We have got a hell of a lot of stuff to go through today. Plenty of news dropping on a Friday, which is always much appreciated. As is, it's New Music Day if you're in the drum and bass world like I am. So looking forward to getting some new Sub-Focus stuff, some new Culture Shock stuff. Just, lots of drum and bass. Get into it if you're not already, because it's great. And as you can see, quite a big fan. So anyway, let's crack on with today's stuff and start with this guy. Willian, of course, is a big fan. So many fans. He's arguably got too many Arsenal fans at this stage. That is effectively the situation that he finds himself in. And because of this immense love, because of the pure admiration that our fan base has for this guy, he can't take it. He cannot take the amount of love that he has received from Arsenal fans. And for that reason, he is looking to go, it seems, which I think will come as a massive disappointment to so many Arsenal fans around the world. They are going to be gutted that this guy is leaving. But I'm not sure if he's leaving, because we haven't really heard many comprehensive kind of analysis of whether or not he's going. I've searched far and wide for just some idea, for some taste that there might be some reality in this. I found someone called Fabrizio. You may have heard of this. You may have heard of him. Don't worry if you haven't. Fabrizio Romano. He's an Italian journalist. He's on Twitter. He's got a few followers, 2.8. I think he's got 2.8 followers. I don't know how you get 0.8 of a person. He's managed it. And this guy, comes up with this quote, which is as definitive. It's as definitive as I could find. You read into it as you wish, because I don't know if this is for sure. Now, he says, Willian is leaving the club. I want to confirm that he is 100% leaving the club. At the moment, there is nothing going on with other English clubs, but he is leaving the club 100%. Willian is going to leave. And that just leaves me with one question. Is Willian leaving? That's the real crux of the mystery that we've got ourselves into right now. We don't know. I can't give you any more insight than this. There's nothing more. It's quite an open mystery right now as to the future of Willian. So I'm not going to go into this anymore. I'm just going to leave that as it is, and you can interpret that as you like. But there's the update on Willian. Is he going to go? It's anyone's guess right now. Anyway, let's go on to some more serious stuff and talk about Lucas Torreira, who, of course, spent the season on loan at Atletico Madrid. There was some weird rumours that came out yesterday morning that actually he could end up staying. That isn't true. I cannot see any way feasible that Torreira stays at Atletico Madrid next season. The biggest rumour that we've got that has what in my view is the most truth is the links to Fiorentina, who is going to be coached now by Gennaro Gattuso in Italy. Of course, he was linked to Fiorentina about a year ago when he was making that move to Atletico Madrid a few months prior in the window when we were looking at deals to move him on. He was being linked with a loan with an obligation to Fiorentina, but it didn't really work out for Arsenal at the time. And in the end, he ended up going for an even worse situation. So it's a weird scenario we find ourselves in. He has been speaking. He's been saying stuff like he's got 2 years left on his deal. He's going to have to wait and see. He just wants to focus on the Copa America right now. So we will not know much about Torreira's future, it seems like, until after the Copa America is finished, which is going to be quite a while from now. Okay, let's go on to our next one. I'll get a lot of your thoughts, of course, towards the end of the video in our Q&A section, but I will briefly pause throughout. William Saliba, this is more good news about the Frenchman. There are some funny rumours about a swap deal yesterday coming out with Tap Sober, I'll speak about in a second. But William Saliba is 100% going to be an Arsenal player this season. He's coming back to play in pre-season. He's going to be integrated into the first team a lot more. He's going to be given a chance to prove himself for the Arsenal first team for next season. If he plays anything like he's played at Nice, then hopefully he should be able to get a fairly decent shot at playing, because he's had a very good loan spell, and we're going to do a dedicated show onto that probably next week. So make sure you stick around for that content. But Saliba, do not worry about William Saliba. Do not get your hair in a tiz. It's going to be fine. He's going to be here next season. Just don't overreact, because he's just not one to to worry about right now. I think that we can let this one be, unless something silly happens, which Arsenal do have a tendency to do. But this one is pretty safe. Now, oh God, okay. You probably saw the quotes from Matteo Guendouzi yesterday. I want to talk. If you haven't seen them, here they are. He tweeted about Unai Emery. Now, let's provide some context around the quote first. Of course, Unai Emery is the coach that he came into the club knowing. He's the one that introduced him into the Arsenal first team. He sent him a very nice message when he was sacked. He clearly gets on with the guy. Okay, I get it. I really do. I understand that you like Unai Emery. I get it. But this is the quote. Let's read it. What a journey. I can't. I'm not going to put some sarcasm on this. I'm going to read this as it is intended. What a journey. This football, so smart and elegant. You made the dream of an entire city, of a club, a team, and of all the fans come true. You did it. You know how to win trophies. Hats off, Monsieur Emery. I could not laugh there. You are so unique. I am honoured and proud to have had the opportunity to evolve by your side. Words will never be strong enough to qualify your personality, your benevolence, and your authenticity in human relationships. Now, I need to check. I need to check. I'm going to read you what benevolence means. Benevolence means the quality of being well-meaning and kindness. That's the irony that we've got there. I couldn't get through all of it. Trinity said, put all the sarcasm on it. Put all the sarcasm on it. Basically, the barometer to know whether or not something is good is usually, there's two ways you can do it. One, you can check what Yannick Mack thinks in the chat. If he agrees with it, you're probably on the wrong path. Second route is to obviously realise the situation, which is Guendouzi is not a fan of Mikel Arteta. In fact, when we won the FA Cup, he was on vacation. I think he uploaded a picture of him on vacation. Nothing about the club that he plays for actually winning a trophy. He was on holiday somewhere, which is fine. He's allowed to do that because he was not in the club, not really in the team and in the thoughts. But yeah, oh dearie me, just move him on. I'm not going to go into any of my personal feelings about this. Just move him on. The faster we get this guy out, the faster we get him gone, the better. It's as simple as that. We don't need this animosity. We don't need this petulance, this immaturity. We don't need it. If you can't read between the lines of this quote, I don't know what more he can say. I understand there are a lot of people who like him, think he can be a very good prospect. And before, I did too. I really did. But I just can't get over how petulant he can be sometimes. It's so obvious what he's doing. I'm going to leave it there. We'll talk about some stuff later. Marseille, have him. You are welcome to him. Enjoy all of the Guendouzi-isms that you will get. I just don't want him anywhere close to Arsenal Football Club. That's just pretty much it. Speaking of the complete kind of other end of the spectrum in regards to what's been going on with Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka is obviously someone that you guys know how I feel about Granit Xhaka. I like the guy. I appreciate his quality. I think he's a good player. He looks like he's going to be off this summer, and in which case Arsenal need to be looking at getting a decent fee. And that is very much the issue that we found ourselves in with this story, is because there's been a lot of conflicting reports about possible fees and how much Roma want to pay, you, the club that are in for him, how much Arsenal want for him. It seems to be a fairly well-established figure that Arsenal want, about £20 million. which for me is still underselling this guy. 2 years left on his deal, 28 years old, Premier League proven, in the team of the season for CIS this season. It's just mental that people still can't get in their minds what this guy does. And he is an important player for the club. Gets plaudits all the time about what he does on the team and what he does for the pitch. He makes mistakes. That is not without debate. He makes errors. But the fact of the matter is that Arsenal have been a much better team with him in there than not. And losing him is going to mean that we are going to need to replace him, and we're going to need to bring in a quality player. To get in a player that is going to get you as good and better, what we should be aiming for, always should be aiming to try and improve and upgrade. And if we are going to get someone in better than Xhaka, it's going to cost us a fair chunk of money. And so in which case, if we're selling Granit Xhaka, we need to get a fair chunk of money. And when you hear sums of around £10 million being thrown around by Roma, you start to think, how bad of a situation is the club in that we can allow this type of just ridiculous sums of money to be associated with some of our players? I understand that we have sold poorly and we have a reputation for that. But if we start buying into it, and if we start accepting this just utter horrific perception that clubs have of the way we sell, then we're never going to escape it. 20 million quid for this guy is underselling him anyway, for the situation that he finds himself in. He's a massively underappreciated player and underrated player, but it probably is the right time to move on. It's probably the right time to move on from him. I just think that if we are going to move on from him, get a good fee, and we need to get a bloody good player in that's going to replace what he does in the team. We need a good passer. We need someone that's going to progress the ball. We need someone that's going to be able to bring that leadership quality to the team as well. I'm fine with him going if he's going to go, but we just need to get a good fee and a good replacement. That's all I asked for when it comes down to Granit Xhaka. But yeah, we will see what happens. If it is around that figure, I really don't know what to say. Now, I think that's our last Arsenal out story. So I'll go through some of your comments now and see what you guys think. Drizzy says, who would be a captain in the midfield like him that we could bring in? And it's such a hard question to answer, because you can scout players through statistics and the eye test, but really you need to be working and looking around players week in, week out, and understanding how they're like on the training pitch, what they're like in games, how they communicate with their players, how they inspire those, what the players' opinions of them are, which, by the way, the opinions of Xhaka by the rest of his teammates is exceptionally high. It's finding that same kind of player in and the mentality of that in someone else. I wouldn't go all 100% Xhaka, because we know he's got some errors and also some red cards and some volatile moments in him as well. But we need to find someone that is going to bring you in that experience and quality and leadership and vocality that you get from Granit Xhaka. T. Irving says, does Xhaka leaving mean that Arteta would be looking to move to a 4-3-3 formation? I don't know, because it depends on the replacement. It doesn't matter on really who goes. It's more about who we bring in as the replacement. Nathan says, I have been Xhaka's biggest critic, but he has been our best midfielder this season. Good luck to the lads, which is the best way, I think, when people aren't the biggest fans of Granit Xhaka and the biggest critics of him, to see messages like that is the way that we want. Not people sending laughing emojis or praying emojis. Like, grow the hell up. Get a life. get a life. Aditya says, Xhaka is definitely a player worth more than 30 million, only because of his importance to the team, and this would be a classic Arsenal always underselling. Tom says, we shouldn't accept less than 25 million and now bring in Berger on top of Basuma. Basuma, for me, and we'll talk a little bit about him later on, is obviously someone that I want to see, but the fact that there's things about him not being at the top of the pile of the people that we're interested in, it makes me wonder who that number one target is. As I say, we'll get onto that a little bit later. I'm timing him out. I'm timing him out. See you, Yannick. Not having it. Oh, dearie me. Alan Matthews says, Xhaka is so underrated. If you see the stats, he is one of the best in the Premier League. He makes mistakes, but when he plays with good centre midfielders, he plays well. He is definitely 30 million or more. I need a 5-minute Yannick break. That's what I need. Reece Harvey says, surely if we are selling Xhaka, then we are definitely bringing in a Basuma, a Berger, or an Aouar. I think that's probably the way that we go down in that route. Tim Jallo says, Tom, when evaluating a player solely based on stats, do you think there is a possibility of missing important aspects of the game? Can stats be misleading, or are they the ultimate truth? It's a great question, mate. And this is the way when we do our tactical breakdowns, I always want to get an expert on who can give us the eye test and give us kind of that additional bit of information beyond just the statistical comparisons. Because stats can tell, I think stats are very easily read into too much. However, it depends how overwhelming they are. If the overwhelming evidence is that they're a good passer or a good tackler and across loads of metrics across multiple seasons, they keep on proving that, then stats are still very, very good. If you're looking at like a 6-month period of a player and you're trying to prove something about them based upon that period, stats aren't necessarily going to be as reliable. But as we know with Granit Xhaka's statistics across the time he's been at the club, they are very good. It's just sometimes a lot of the players that we don't really appreciate necessarily the role that they do goes under the radar because they're not a flair player or they're not cracking up with loads of goals and stuff like that. It makes it more difficult. But there is always a possibility of missing important aspects because if you speak to any scout, and having interviewed a fair few scouts on the channel, yes, of course, stats is a huge part of their analysis of a footballer, but actually going to the games, going to the training ground, interacting with the player, seeing how they are with other players and just getting that personality side of the game is also really, really important. And what I would say about Granit Xhaka is he is very highly rated on a personal level by his teammates. So it does go beyond stats, but we know that he's got his vices. We know that he's got a volatile nature and a red card and a stake in him, and we get that. But statistically and from the perception of a lot of people within the club and within the team, he is very well liked on that level as well. Let's go on to our outs. Oh, no, we're not. We're not carrying on with our ends. We've got one more story, I believe. Hector Bellerin, of course, was linked with a move to Real Betis, if you saw. And their director, Ferrier, has come out with a comment recently saying, we're not making, I say emphatically, an effort to sign the player. However, he is, why not, among the positions we need and is a player of a perfect fit for us. He could be a candidate, but we are not talking to Arsenal at the moment about Bellerin. So that's what Ferrier has said, who is a director at the club. And they need the position because Emerson's not going to be there next season. He looks like he's going to go to Barcelona, if not already. That's gone a bit quiet on the Arsenal front, the whole Emerson thing. But they are going to be looking at a right back, and Bellerin would fit that mould. They have gone out and signed players of that kind of calibre. I mean, they've got in the likes of Nabil Fekir, William Carvalho. They've got obviously some very good players in their team. Guedes Rodriguez. They had Emerson, of course, as well. Mark Bartra and these types of guys. Like, they've got some very decent players in the squad, and they do sign them from some fairly decent sides and surprise in the transfer market. So it wouldn't necessarily be a big kind of surprise to me if he did go to Real Betis. It's a very decent club. They're going to be in Europe next season, I believe. So it would be an all right fit for him. I think this is one that's probably going to run, the Bellerin thing. I don't think it's going to get sorted out quickly. I think this is one that might be a protracted situation over the summer that maybe even ends up with him staying. There's no guarantees that he even goes. He'll need a decent fee to come in for him, and he'll need a club of the size that he'll want to go to come in for him. But Bellerin looks certainly like he's going to be off. Let's go on to our possible transfers in. Now, today we will be doing a tactical breakdown on Tap Sober, of course, probably around midday-ish. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss this. It will be coming out today. We'll be doing some comparisons with the likes of Saliba, with the likes of Mavropanos and Rob Holding as well. We might even throw in we might throw in like Gabriel and that just to see how he compares on that side. Because he has played on the left a lot for Bayer Leverkusen, but he is right-footed. So we'll go into a lot of that in the show, but make sure you tune in a little bit later on today for the tactical breakdown on Tap Sober specifically. Anyway, going on to the other stories regarding our players possibly going outwards. Yves Bissouma has supposedly been not necessarily knocked down Arsenal's list of priorities, but he's not at the top. He's not at the top of Arsenal's priorities this season for that position. Who the person who is at the top of the pile, we don't have a clue. We have been linked to a number of central midfielders, Sander Berge, Guedes Rodriguez. We've been linked to these guys that all kind of fulfill that similar role. Not exactly the same. Berge is slightly more of a box-to-box than Bissouma is. But in that same kind of area of the pitch, Arsenal are definitely looking for that. And they're not necessarily sure, I don't think, on the specific type. I think they're looking at different characteristics of midfielders to see who would fit the club the best. But they've obviously got to get the deal done. If they want to get Bissouma, he isn't going to stick around because there is interest from Liverpool, there's interest from Manchester City, and he will go from Brighton, I believe, this summer. And whether it's to Arsenal or someone else, he's going to go. So they need to move quickly if they want to get him. My feeling is that it isn't going to happen. If I was a betting man, as I say, I'm always not. I'm not. But if I was, I wouldn't be putting money on Bissouma going to Arsenal this season, based upon everything that we're kind of hearing. But you never know. Things change. Things can turn around. I do think the African Cup of Nations is a factor. And obviously the fact that we've already got Thomas Partey in that position. Would the club want to lose 2 key central midfielders? I don't know. And there are a lot of quality midfielders out there that wouldn't be lost during that month of the season. Ødegaard and Emi Buendia. Again, these two are very, very much linked into their futures. Ødegaard, according to the Spanish press, is certainly wanted by Real Madrid to stay. He will be part of the next manager's plans, and that will rule out a return to Arsenal in the future, which does open the door for Emi Buendia to be an Arsenal player. It is one that we are waiting for Arsenal to make a first official bid. The lay of the land is being set. They are doing talks. They're in talks with in the club and representatives to kind of get a feel to how much of this deal would cost them to get done. But he is a player that they're very keen on. I am repeating stuff I've said before because there's nothing specifically changed on the Buendia front yet. It is the Ødegaard situation that keeps changing, and we keep finding out more certainly that he is going to be a Real Madrid player next season. Now, this is something I wanted to address again. Now, we did a video a week or so ago where we talked about homegrown quotas. Now, a quote or an article that was written by Chris Wheatley of Football London today used the quote that Arsenal need to sell before they can buy, which I initially reacted to like WTF because we've heard about all these big plans and the investment of the owners, etc. But then that was my System 1 brain going, oh my God, just reacting immediately and not actually taking a sec to just pause and wait and then respond. And when you do reflect on the situation, Arsenal do need to sell before they can buy. Not necessarily because of a financial reason, but because we have got a hell of a lot of players. These 17 are our non-homegrown players in the squad. And 17 is the maximum that you can have. So if we want to sign a non-homegrown player, a Bissouma, if we want to sign a Buendia, if we want to sign any of these guys, we have to move some players on. So whilst, yes, Arsenal do need to sell before they can buy, it is not specifically related to the need to raise funds, but more so because we need to move on some of the players within the squad that are non-homegrown. Now, from that list, you're immediately looking at your Kolasinacs, your Torreiras, your Granit Xhaka now as well, of course, Cedric, Willian, Guendouzi, Mavropanos, possibly Lacazette, maybe Runnison, maybe Leno. A lot can change. There's plenty of those guys that can be moved on, but the fact of the matter is that we do need to move them on. We've still then got a lot of homegrown players at the club, Bellerin, Maitland-Niles, Willock, Holding, Chambers, and Nketiah and Nelson, but some of them are likely to move on. Bellerin's probably going to go. Maitland-Niles could go. Willock could go. Nelson and Nketiah could also go. Chambers could even go. There's lots of players that are very much open to their futures being away from Arsenal. And then of the 4 that are going to become homegrown players at the end of next season, well, already, of course, they're under 21, so they don't count towards that quota, but you can still register them as such. Saka would count as homegrown if we were to put him in, so would Smith Rowe. And after next season, Gabriel Martinelli and Saliba would have been at Arsenal for 3 years, and so therefore will also count towards Arsenal's homegrown quota because they would have been at the club for 3 years between the ages of 16 and 21. So they will then count towards a homegrown quota, which is good news for the club. But the fact of the matter is that we shouldn't overreact about the fact that we meant to see... You shouldn't react about the idea that Arsenal need to sell before they can buy and think that it's immediately because of a financial issue. It's not. It's because we need to move on the non-homegrown players from the squad. Anyway, let's go now into the final section of the show, which is, of course, our Q&A section to see what you guys are feeling about. Pat Moores, of course, saying Balogun will also be in there. He will, but he's not 21 yet, so he wouldn't count towards that homegrown quota. And the homegrown quota starts is when you're 21 at the start of the year, January 1st. So the likes of Willock was 21 on the 1st of January this year, so he counts towards the homegrown quota. Mick Lucas says, morning, Tom. Always seem to drag our heels on good players and then other clubs come in and snap them up. Typical Arsenal indeed, mate. Jakob says, morning, Tom. What do you think about Toyn Koopmeiners from RZ as a replacement for Granit Xhaka? Good left-footed player, goal scoring, good technique, good physicality, club captain. Yeah, 100%. If you had the chance to go out and get Toyn Koopmeiners, he's a lot more mobile than what Granit Xhaka was. He gives you a lot of the same kind of traits as what he is. Dutch international, very highly rated, young, good investment, sell on value, all of those traits. If you can get him, I think I would. And I think I'd also sign someone else on top of him as well, like a Basuma at the same time, especially if we're losing Granit Xhaka. I was signing someone anyway with Granit Xhaka staying. So with him going, I think you look at a Koopmeiners and someone else to add to the Arsenal team. Josh Hunter says, thoughts on Buendia? Got 1 goal in the Prem, but 31 goals and assists this season in the Championship. Yeah, I think this is an important point to raise. Players change, players develop. You can't judge them based on something they did necessarily 2 years ago. It's about consistency and then about the trend of development, which is certainly something that Buendia is changing. His statistics are insanely good. Speaking to the Norwich fans who've got the eye test this season, they say he looks a different player to the player that he was previously, not only in the Premier League, but when he played elsewhere as well at Getafe. He's taken that step up, that developmental stage of movement that we needed to see him to make that move to a bigger club like Arsenal. Love the guy, would love to sign him. If you can get it for 35 million, that's an absolute steal, in my opinion. Go out and do it. Get it finished. Get it done. Move him on. Get him into pre-season. Assimilate, all of that stuff. Billy Ferraldi says, Tom, what do you think of Neves? I don't think Neves is necessarily that big of an upgrade on Granit Xhaka, but seeing as Granit Xhaka is going, but bringing in Neves would not necessarily be too much of an issue, but I would want to see someone else brought in with him. He's obviously got a lot more potential in terms of his age to grow and develop into a better player than Granit Xhaka. We know that he can score from outside the box, but it's just more of a novelty that than anything else rather than his actual statistics. But we are going to be having a tactical breakdown dedicated to Ruben Neves out tomorrow. So make sure you tune into the channel to find out a lot more about Ruben Neves, and we'll be comparing him directly to Granit Xhaka statistically. So we'll see how he matches up. Aditya says, do you rate Briel Mbolo, who I believe is now, is it Gladbach? I lose track. He was at Schalke. Is he at Gladbach now? Let me just have a check. Yes, he is. So I haven't watched much of him at all at Gladbach. I used to watch him more when he was at Schalke and when he was coming through. I haven't seen him much of the Swiss national side. I haven't seen his link to him. He was such a highly rated kid when he was growing. I mean, he's still not necessarily old, is he? I mean, how old is he now? He's 24, exactly. So when I was watching him when he was like 2021 at Schalke, that for me was when I thought, wow, this guy's going to explode into something special. I think he was he at Basel prior to when he was at Schalke? I'm just going to click on his profile now to see if that's right. He was at Basel and then he went to Schalke, and then in 2019 he joined Gladbach. So yeah, I think that his goal return for them is not the best. 13 in 53 in Bundesliga games, 10 in 48 for Schalke. He was doing really well at Basel as a kid. I mean, 7 years ago when he was just 16, 17, 18, 21 goals in 61 games at that age for Basel is very good, but he hasn't really been able to translate that necessarily to the top league. So I think I'd probably steer clear of him. Tom says, Tom, I think I saw a silly rumor about Modric. I mean, he signed a new contract, so he's going to be with Real Madrid until the end of next year. I mean, it was running out, so we needed to sign a year extension. So he's not going to be going anywhere. Of course, he's a brilliant player, but I think he's like 35, 36 now, and he's on a lot of wages. So yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure at all. Antonio Banks says, this guy is so frustrating to watch. Who is Antonio? You're talking about me? I'm so sorry. Don't tune in. Don't tune in if it's me. Jashar says, Tom, do you think we will always fall behind if we have to wait to sell before we buy? I'm sure that was the plan last summer. It depends how quickly we move, Jasho. It depends on certain. Oh, sorry, Antonio, you meant Mbola. It wasn't me. Thank you for clarifying that. Also, can be frustrating. I know I am for a fair few people. Yannick. Jasho Josiah said though, if we're always going to fall behind, if we have to wait to sell before we buy. I get what you're saying, but it's about Jashar. It's about the changing the squad over time. This summer is not going to fix everything, but we need to be in a position where we aren't in this position of always selling to have to buy, that we've got a squad that we only need to add 1 or 2 players to rather than a whole half team plus to make this team better. Unfortunately, we've put ourselves in this situation through bad recruitment and bad selling, and now we have to sell before we can buy to move on a lot of the surplus requirements to the team. It's just, unfortunately, just the way that it is. And until we sort it out with big overhaul, it's going to perpetually be like that. Ivan says, oh my God, this is the first time I'm catching this live. Well, welcome, mates. Good to have you in the chat. Make sure you're subbed and drop a like on the video. Drizzy says, question, when Fab said that Basuma isn't our first choice, do you think he was including the attacking midfield option? I don't think he was. I think that he was talking about specifically the deeper area of the midfield, the 6s and the 8s, rather than the number 10s and the 7s, to be honest, which I look at Buendia as kind of your 7 going out onto the right-hand side. But, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he was talking about attacking midfielders, no. I don't know who that is, Paul. Hold on. Maybe I do. Paul Onuachu, who, of course, is a Genk striker. I know nothing about him. All I was tagged in, me and Clive were tagged on something about him. 27-year-old striker. Is he very tall? Is he like over 2 meters in height? I think he's a well-tall striker. But I mean, for backup, for a plan B type, is it worth it? I mean, he's 6'7". Jesus Christ. He's got 42 goals and 60 league games for Genk. That is an incredible return. But he's in the Belgian league, and we've seen the likes of Sanderberg do very well in the Belgian league and then struggle moving over to the Premier League. He would be maybe a good plan B. So maybe it's a plan B option, mate, possibly. But it depends on the futures of who else we've got at the club. Billy says, do you think we have a chance of getting Camavinga? No. Sorry, Billy, to burst your bubble, but no. Matt Thornton says, would you look at Ajer from Celtic, as we are looking at centre-backs, 23, 24 years old? I don't know a lot about him. I'm cautious to say that I'd turn my nose up at a Celtic defender after, of course, we did at Van Dijk for so long. And look what happened to him. So I won't pass judgment until looking into him, Matt. But thanks for the suggestion. Toby says, Calvin Phillips, hello. As a lead central midfielder, is quite injured. I'm not sure he's actually going to make the European Championships this summer. But he's certainly a Premier League quality player. He's been very good for Leeds this season, and an England international, which does put a premium on his price, and I imagine would cost a hell of a lot. That's why I would lean towards someone else, just because of the figure that would be attached to him. Justin says, given Xhaka's character, I'm prompted to think that Mourinho would be a good coach for him. What do you think? Maybe. That might work. It might be a match made in heaven for those two. It may be the complete opposite. I think it's a really unknown variable, but I would be intrigued to see how those two would work together. Don Dada says, would you do a tactical breakdown of Neves, Xhaka, and Koopmeiners? Well, we are doing a tactical breakdown on Ruben Neves on Saturday, so maybe Koopmeiners and Xhaka can be the players that we compare him to. We'll have to have a look into that one. That'll be out on Saturday, so make sure you tune in for that one. Yon H says, what about Hakimi? Inter need money. He looks like he's going to be staying at the club, which is interesting. So I've just got a message come up about Basuma's not a target, according to James Pearce of Liverpool. So Liverpool are supposedly not interested in Basuma. Very interesting. And they're going to be keeping hold of both Mane and Salah. So there you go. Interesting. That's one less club that Arsenal need to face to try and get Basuma. Yazir says, Tom, can Locatelli replace Xhaka? I mean, yeah, 100%. I'd go and get him. He's a brilliant, brilliant player. Italian players don't often like leaving Italy, same as we talked about German players in Germany don't tend to enjoy leaving. Like that. When you look at kind of the whole, it's like England players haven't typically in the past moved abroad. Italy and Germany are the same, whereas you look at players like in France and Spain, very different. Do go off to other leagues quite often. It is changing more, especially with English footballers, and we've seen the likes of Jorginho move from Italy to, of course, England. But maybe Locatelli would move, but I feel like he's more destined to end up at a Juventus or a Inter or a Milan. We'll have to wait and see. Let's scroll down a little bit more and get some more of your questions. It is Friday, so it's my day off, so I can answer a few more of your questions this morning. Red and White says, Tom, what are the chances of getting Florian Neuhaus? Great show. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, mate. A lot of people tweet me about Florian Neuhaus. I've seen little bits and pieces for doing research for articles and stuff, but I see him more as kind of your attacking midfielder than necessarily as your number 8. I know he can play there, but I do see him more as kind of your further forward attacking midfielder that brings assists and goals. Is he a good player? Of course. Would he be someone that Arsenal would do well to invest in? Definitely. Are they going to get him? Unlikely. is the short summary of Florian Neuhaus. I think he's your type of player that's going to end up at your Dortmunds or your Bayern Munichs rather than coming to the UK. But I thought that also about a player like Kai Havertz. So I was proven wrong about that. Maybe I'll be proven wrong about Florian Neuhaus as well. Fang says, it is quite sad. I will miss Xhaka and his mentality. Is there any way he will stay in Arsenal, or is he on his way? I mean, at the moment, of course, there's always the chance that he will stay. If Roma don't pay the money that Arsenal want, he could stay. But I get the feeling that they will pay eventually the money that they want, because Mourinho will want to be backed and he'll want to see that he is being backed by the club. And so if Arsenal ask for 20 million, pay the 20 million. I still think that's underselling the guy. But if that's what they think he's worth, you know, here's what it is. Make the same mistakes over and over again. Chris P says, would you release Runnison if we couldn't find a buyer? Yes, I would. Dilip says, how will we line up with Buendia? Will it affect Martinelli's growth? No, I don't think it would do. I think that maybe it might have a knock-on effect with who he moves over to the other side. But the Buendia situation for me is someone that can play in rotation with a Pepe, can play in rotation with a Smith Rowe, and you've got kind of a four there. You've got your Saka, your Pepe, Smith Rowe, and Buendia that can rotate in different positions. Smith Rowe can move out to the left and play with Buendia. You could even put Buendia on the right and Smith Rowe into the middle. You could play Pepe on the right, Saka on the left, and then one or two of Buendia and Smith Rowe, and then Martinelli can still be getting minutes, be coming off the bench, could be starting games here and there, playing in the cup games. He is still very young. People forget this about Martinelli. Yes, I want to see more of him, but I want to see more of him because of how frustratingly bad players like Aubameyang, Lacazette, well, maybe not Lacazette, but more so Aubameyang and players like Willian were. Like, we kept playing these guys instead of Martinelli. That's what frustrated me about that. But Saka, Pepe, Buendia, Smith Rowe are a very good quartet of players. And so Martinelli would struggle to start regularly, but would still get opportunities from the bench and rotation and cup games, of course, too. And as I said, he's very young. So he's got a lot of time at the club still to play. Wilson says, do you think that Arsenal need another attacking midfielder with Buendia, and why? With him, I don't think so. I don't think if you go out and sign Buendia, you're signing like 2 in 1. Because you've got a player that can play your 7 role, that can play your 10 role. So I don't really see a need for Buendia to have an Erdogan on loan. I'm not saying I'd turn it down if it was a loan deal, but I think there's higher priorities than 2 attacking midfielders. Especially, I don't want to really block the path of Smith Rowe much more, because I want to see him get loads of minutes next season and really develop into a top-class player under a new contract. So no, I don't think I would go for an extra one, because I think Buendia can do your 7 role and your number 10 role at the same time. Sahil says, Tom, no Bertrand, then who should we go for? Any idea about Feyenoord's left back? Is that Haps? Is Feyenoord's left back Haps? Other than that, I don't know. Let me have a look very quickly for you. I know obviously Owen Wijndal plays for RZ Alkmaar, if that was who you were thinking of. But Feyenoord's left back they have got Haps, but they've also got Tyrell Malacia, who I've not heard of before. Haps is 27 though, but Tyrell Malacia, who I've not heard of much about at all this season. Let's have a look at his stats. 1 assist, no goals, 26 games. Very much trusted at Feyenoord, it seems. So maybe he's the man. Maybe he's someone to look into. I don't know, but I think the main Dutch left back that people are kind of looking at more so is Owen Wijndal, more so than him. I would certainly be looking at him more, but maybe Malacia would be open to a move to Arsenal. They've already got Haps there who can be a deputy unless he's seriously injured, and that's why he's not playing. But yeah, maybe I have heard of him, but I can't place it if I have. Doom and Gooner, who's one of our newer members. Of course, if you would like to help support the channel, you get access to using emojis in the chat box and, of course, exclusive stuff as well. You get to join our Discord server if you sign up for an expert member. So do help support the channel. It helps pay for a lot of the stuff like mics, green screens, cameras, laptops, etc., stuff like that. Always go straight back into the channel, graphics. Doom and Gooner says, does losing Granit Xhaka signal a midfield remodel? Maybe to a more athletic every blade of grass combo to allow for a front 3 or 4. Maybe. I think what you're trying to talk about there is maybe look at a single number 6, like an isolated number 6 with 2 number 8s in front, to be a little bit more expansive than playing with necessarily a double pivot of 2 8s or 8 and a 6. But I still think Arteta wants to play with the 2. He obviously tried playing Smith Rowe and Erdegaard as 8s. We saw it against a few teams this season, but I still do think the balance works a lot better when we have the double pivot rather than a single pivot. And I think that to unlock Partey, he needs someone next to him. If you are going to play the single pivot, I don't want that being Thomas Partey. I want him being the one in front with a more disciplined number 6 behind Thomas Partey to allow him to be more expressive. So maybe it's a remodel that's coming. Maybe Xhaka's departure allows that. But we have struggled without Xhaka being in that position this season. So how we are going to move on from that, we'll have to wait and see. Ansat says, don't you think Buendia is a very similar player to Smith Rowe? I think I would go for something different, like an Ødegaard. No, I don't. I don't think he is. I think that he's very much a player that is in the mould of a 7 that wants to skew inside, whereas I look at Smith Rowe as certainly more of an out-and-out number 10 than I look at Buendia as. I think Buendia's end product and creation is a lot better than Smith Rowe. I think he likes to get into the box a little bit more than Smith Rowe does too. I think he's a more rounded, accomplished player. He is older. I think them both together is something that really excites me. Seeing Buendia, basically an Ødegaard that's got goals and assists at a higher level than the Ødegaard does. I think seeing Buendia and Smith Rowe together is a really exciting prospect going into next season. Plain says, are you fine with Xhaka leaving? I'm fine with it if we get a decent fee and we replace him. There's lots of kind of... I'm not just a person that wants to see us get rid of Xhaka for the sake of it, which I know there are quite a few people out there that do. I'm not of that mind. If we are going to get rid of Xhaka, you need to replace him. You need to get a good fee for him. Don't mug yourselves off. Don't undersell yourselves. Stop putting us into this bracket of a club that's easy to buy players from for really cheap prices. Make yourself as difficult as possible. Aditya says, do you rate Omar Rekic in our youth team, Tom? And it would be amazing if you could do a best of the youth squad kind of video anytime. Would love that. Thanks, mate. Omar is, I mean, Rekic, of course, came in from Hertha Berlin in January because we couldn't get the paperwork done quick enough last summer. So he joined in January. He's played here and there in the youth team. He's far from first team setup, but he's got a lot more development to do before he gets to that level. Will I do some videos on the youth? If there's any kind of calm in the storm of the transfers, maybe we'll look into it. But at the moment, it's so busy with transfer stuff. Once we've got a few deals done and it starts to quieten down a bit, then there'll probably be more of a time to do those sorts of videos. But for now, transfers are taking over, as you would expect. Should Aziz go on loan, says Barley? Yeah, definitely. I'll be well up for a loan to a Premier League club or a Championship club or a top 5 league club. 100%. Great experience. Go get it. Go get it. I mean, you look at Joe Willock, hadn't gone on a loan prior to this season, goes on his loan and flourishes. Loans are important. And Nketiah goes on a loan, doesn't get played. It's very different. Aziz needs to be put somewhere where he's going to get regular minutes and where he's going to play. But yeah, 100% go and get Aziz on loan. Always. South London's Finest B says, Tom, do you think Arsenal will listen to you for once and sign Mwepu? There were links in January. I mean, I'd love it, mate. I think I'd love us to go and sign Mwepu, but I think he's like a second tier for me. Like, you need to go out and sign your Basumas, your Guido Rodriguez, that level, and then you sign Mwepu on top of that. He's so versatile. He's so mobile. He's so different to what we have. I'd love if we got him, but I just, don't think so. Thanks, Wilson. Noel says, Luiz and Xhaka leaving in the same window leaves us a bit short in leadership department, doesn't it? It definitely does, Noel. It's going to be something that does need addressing. Aletta says, Forza Roma, welcome Xhaka on Twitch. We do stream on Twitch if you were interested to know that. And we also, if you ever miss these shows and you're like, I don't have to stare at this guy's ugly face, we do put these out on audio platforms. So they are on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. So if you're ever in the car or you're ever on a run and you want to listen to my horrible voice, we are on just those audio-only platforms as well. Antonio Banks says, do you think formations are overrated? Is the intention, the way of playing, more important? Of course, obviously, style is very much... Style over substance is not necessarily always a good thing, but style and the way you play and the systems and the understanding and the synergy between players is always going to be important. Formations are basically for the benefit of you and me to see what the team is roughly setting up like. But systems in games change all the time. It's very fluid, especially under Arteta. Systems and formations have been very fluid. So it's not a set in stone thing. The system and the mentality is what is more important. The style of play is what is key. over the set formation that the players are laid up in and how those players interchange with each other and the understanding of their roles. That's what's more important than a formation. Stefan says, sell Xhaka, Guendouzi, Torreira, Maitland-Niles and Willian. That should bring in around 60 to 70 million pounds to bring in Basuma and one other. Chris P says, I heard that Szoboszlai could be made available this summer. Thoughts? Haha, I wish. No. He's just signed a 1-year extension with RB Leipzig. He's going nowhere. He's only just signed for them. He hasn't even played for them because he's had an adductor issue for all of the second half, but he's going to the Euros. So, you know, going to be getting on the Salzburg shirt for the Hungary games. Let's see if they can progress past. They've got a really easy group, Hungary. I mean, they've only got France, Portugal, and Germany. Easy. Szoboszlai is going to smash them up. Anza says, saw your analysis on Sander Berg, and I do understand his stats in the Prem aren't that good, but I think him and Basuma as replacements for Xhaka and El Neni would be amazing. I believe he'll be good. I believe he'll have a good future, Sander Berg. It's just the sample size that we've got right now isn't that impressive, and I did use the context of his stats from playing at Genk, and I did think that gave a little bit more context to the situation. Ansgar says, also, changing this many players isn't going to go down well in all cases. Have a look at Hector Bellerin. Very, very true. But the unfortunate reality is that we do need to change a lot of players. And by not doing that, I think it puts us in a worse position. But if we go out and sign a lot of players, do be prepared for it to take a little bit of time for things to gel together. So Hill says, Tom, do you think we should go for Aouar with that fee? He is a steal. With Buendia and Basuma. I mean, if you're signing Basuma and Buendia, I'm not going for Aouar. I'm going for a right back, a backup left back, a backup keeper, maybe even a centre back. So I'm not going for 3 midfielders if one's Aouar. If you get Buendia and Basuma, I think you don't get an Aouar. I think if you're going to sign an extra midfielder, you go for someone a bit cheaper and a bit more depth-wise, like an Mwepu than him. I'm not Aouar's biggest fan. I've said that many a time. There's reasons for that, mentality-wise, kind of the way that he plays in a poor team at times is all those things put together. But yeah, tricky. Matt G says, be honest, Tom, do you miss the European Super League a little, playing Barcelona every other day? No, Matt, not at all. Sorry. If you do, that's great. But I don't, Matt. Sorry, mate. Matt Thornton says, do you see more outgoings than incomings? Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'd be very surprised if there was more incomings and outgoings. We've got a huge squad. We need to move on loads of players. I'll be very shocked if we sign more players than we let go of. Any news on Max Aarons? Says Mick. Not that I am that kind of open about, really. No. Arsenal are interested in him, but there's not really any movement. There's reasons why. But yeah, no, we're not really moving on that one at the moment, unfortunately. I wish we were doing more. But we've got 3 right backs at the club at the moment: Bellerin, Cedric, Chambers. We're not going to be moving on a right back until that's sorted out, basically. Fingers crossed Cedric can go. See you later, son. Bye, Kia. Get out of the club. Matt Thornton says, that's what I was thinking. Cheers, Tom. No problem, mates. Herb says, I'd rather have Aziz over El sideways. I'd rather see Aziz get more investment into him than El Neni, 100%. Because it's important to develop those players. Let's scroll down a little bit more to get some more of the newer comments. Hassan says, thoughts on Rodrigo de Paul in the Arsenal team, Tom? Yeah, I mean, I like Rodrigo de Paul. He's a good leader. I've heard that from the horse's mouth from his youth players at Udinese when we've interviewed them. He's spoken about very, very highly. And I think that he would be a good addition. I think it's very expensive to get it done. And if you can get a Buendia for, say, 35 to 40 over a de Paul for 50 plus, I think that you probably have to go down that route. Christoph says Hakimi should be the first option. I agree, but he won't be because he wants to stay at Inter Milan. Wilson says, Cedric, really? He has been decent. Come on, man. Yeah, Wilson, it's more so to do with the influence of the agent in the club necessarily than Cedric. If Cedric was one of our best players, I might be able to overlook the fact that his agent is very bad for Arsenal Football Club. But he's not. He's a depth player for us. And so if you've got the opportunity, like we've already seen with David Luiz going, Willian's hopefully going, you get Cedric gone, and that's pretty much Kia out, bar Edu, who in my opinion needs to sack off Kia as soon as feasibly possible for the benefit of Arsenal Football Club. Get the guy out, get him out of all of anything involved with Arsenal as soon as feasibly possible. Simple as that. Keep up the good work, mate. Thanks, Marley. Much appreciated. Any news on Ainsley Maitland-Niles, says GGTV. It's funny you should say that because I spent about 15 minutes this morning, which I know doesn't sound a lot of time, but when you're putting this together in the early hours, it is quite a lot of time, trying to find out anything about Maitland-Niles, and there's nothing. Absolutely nil point. Zero. Kaput. Over. Done. Nothing is out there about Mainsley. I don't know why there's nothing, because clearly the Arsenal want to see him move on. They want to sell him. He's up for sale. He's on the transfer list. They are open to offers for him. But nothing. Absolutely nothing so far on him. Jesus, we've been going for 50 minutes. I am going to have to wrap up there, guys. I knew I said I'd gone for a little bit longer. So there you go. We have completed 50 minutes of transfer news, which is quite incredible. As I said, if you have joined us late and you want to just listen on audio, we are on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes, so you can do it that way. If not, please drop a like on the video, guys, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We will have a tactical breakdown this afternoon. Let me just throw it up on the screen for you on Tap Sober. So do make sure you tune in a little bit later on today, and you can find out all about the Burkina Faso international Bayer Leverkusen defender a little bit later on this afternoon with some insight from the guys over at Get German Football News. They're going to be helping us out with the video. But it's been a pleasure to speak to you guys as always. And as always, up the Arsenal.